Good afternoon, everyone. It's hard for me to be in a place surrounded by this amount of delicious spirits. Let's put it this way, not to throw the booze. Thank you. I'll let Laura introduce herself properly before I go there.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Laura Roberto, Head of Client Solutions at EDO. EDO is the TV outcomes company. We work with advertisers, agencies, publishers, like our good friends at Univision, to measure the impact of TV campaigns. We're very excited to be here today. We are issuing our first ever Spanish language TV outcomes report, and we're going to share, coming up next week, but we're going to share a preview of it with you here today.
I'm Roberto Ruiz. I run research and insights for TelevisaUnivision, the largest global Spanish language media company. We were talking about this chat, and I thought that first of all, this is 15 minutes, and what we want you to get out of this is, the power of the Hispanic consumer, the power of Hispanic ads to drive action. But I thought that this is a little bit of a change from the previous talks, because this really has to do with outcomes. And we talk to tons of clients. A lot of you guys are our clients. Thank you for your business. And the most frequent line we hear is, okay, how do I know that this is working? And what proof do you have that this is working? And this is where EDO comes in, because there are not that many always-on attribution tools that actually do not depend on custom pixels or tags, things that are always monitoring media activity and outcomes, and that have norms that allow you to understand how your creative and your campaigns perform. So I want to ask Laura before we start to give us like a short explanation, but detailed of how EDO works.
Yes. So EDO measures all TV, linear and streaming, and we have tools that we're capturing all national advertisers, down to the second, the creative program that they're airing in. And then we have several different tools that we use to measure outcomes, which could either be a search for that brand or a visit to that brand site. And we're connecting the two so that we can understand not only who sees an ad or maybe even pays attention to an ad, but who's actually motivated and sparked by that ad to then go find out more information about the brand. As Roberto was saying, it's fully syndicated, so we can look at all of these different comparisons across advertisers and programs and understand what is the impact of your TV campaign.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, while we're here, there's a tool that's capturing all the Google searches, establishing a baseline, and also all the media activities and looking at peaks.
Yeah.
And based on that, you can compare. And one of the things that we do frequently is we compare Spanish language ads versus English language ads for a category or a brand or a specific campaign, and that's what we're doing in the report for, I think, 4 or 5 different categories. Do you want to give us just a brief preview of the high-level numbers that we found?
Yes, we can. We're going to share some with Diageo later, since we're here. We felt like we should. But there's a lot of great information in there. Like there's, if you're an advertiser in Spanish language in the Super Bowl, we see some advertisers have 10x the performance for their ad on a per impression basis in the Super Bowl than other Spanish language advertising. It's much higher than what we see for general market advertising. Super Bowl is great for everybody, but particularly so for Spanish advertising. And across the board, we see that Spanish language advertising, and whether it's in English or Spanish language, the advertising that's on Spanish language TV networks consistently outperforms English language networks.
Yeah, I think we found out that it's 31% more effective, right? In driving search activity versus an English ad in the same category.
Yeah.
So what's interesting here is that you are seeing the effect of white space. There are still a large number of advertisers that are not active in Spanish language television or streaming. And therefore, there is white space. And those who are taking advantage of that are seeing increased interest in consumers in going to search for that particular brand, which is just proof that this is actually working for those that are actually doing it.
Yes, it's working and it's getting better over time. If we look at year-to-date for Spanish language TV advertising, this year versus last year is about 25% stronger than it was a year ago. So we continue to see it strong. It's a building environment. From an advertising perspective, we see that it's a really good place to be. We also see that spend on Spanish language TV is much lower. And if you look at consumer buying power of Hispanics versus spend in Hispanic places, there's a big disconnect. So I would love to get your opinion on why you think there is that change and that difference there.
Yeah, we continue to see a huge opportunity, if we call it. In terms of there's about 1,500 brands active on English language network TV, about 600 active in Spanish language. So enormous gap. I always say that it is either ignorance or fear or both. Either brands are ignorant of the opportunity, or they haven't quantified how expensive it is to not do this, or they're fearful of doing it wrong. And I hear so many times, well, do I need a commercial for Dominicans different than the one for Mexicans? And sometimes I think people overcomplicate this and they don't look at those that are doing it well. I mean, Walmart, I was here before, Mondelez, all of those are Diageo, established brands that have studied how to do it and do it well and are reaping the benefits. But there's still ample room for growth. We all also hear, well, I'm reaching a lot of Hispanics in English, and that is true. But you are not reaching all the Hispanics in English, and the ones that are sort of more on the Spanish dominant spectrum, they're watching a lot less English media. So those will be incremental consumers. So this is not about doing one or the other. It's doing both and doing it in the right way. So people think of this in a bifurcated way, but in reality they should think about it in an integrated way. And we're talking about that. We're talking about inclusion. Well, it should be inclusive. The budgets should be inclusive of sort of all languages.
I couldn't agree. And the data supports that. And we see that brands that are able to connect in a way that's culturally relevant really drives the needle in how consumers engage. I mentioned the Super Bowl before, and some of the brands that we saw do really well, like Target and Chevrolet, were ones that leaned into Latin culture and had Hispanic celebrities in their creatives. One creative, this wasn't a Super Bowl ad, but one brand that we've seen do really well is the insurance company, The General. It's a relatively smaller player in the insurance category. And one thing that I've noticed is that there isn't as much insurance advertising on Spanish language TV. But The General had a creative. It featured Morgana Brewster in it. It had Shaq in it, speaking in Spanish. And it did incredibly well. It did 2 times stronger than other insurance advertising on Spanish language TV. And what makes that really impressive to me is that they are a smaller spender. Their share of voice compared to other bigger premier insurance companies is a tiny little fraction of it. And they're still able to reach consumers and break through in a way that's been really meaningful on Spanish language TV.
Yeah, that's a great example of, that there is a lot of fluidity among Hispanics. In other words, there's fluidity between languages, fluidity between cultures, right? Some people call us 200% individuals, 100% American, 100% Hispanic, but really 300% because you're 100% American, 100% Hispanic, and maybe 100% Mexican or Venezuelan in my case. So there's not only fluidity between culture and language, but between platforms and media choices. So a brand like that can use their same spokespeople and make it fun and create. There's only one brand. People should be free to use one brand, but deploy across languages and platform in a way that is connected to the insights and to the way consumers are perceiving the brand. So there's ample opportunities to do this as opposed to doing it in silos. Just thinking about different consumer segments, like it's funny when you're doing your creative at the beginning, and then thinking, is this going to be inclusive? Am I going to be able to use this asset across platforms, or this idea, or this campaign across platforms, as opposed to thinking about this as an isolated effort somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, speaking about platforms, it makes me think about streaming. And we all know that we're moving toward a streaming dominant way of viewing TV. And we're seeing from a marketing perspective that it's really strong. As marketers, we have more ability to target when we're on a digital platform. And then when you think about the consumer behavior, it's a lot harder to change apps on a smart TV than it is to change channels. So you do have a built-in, more captive audience. And one of the things that we've been focused on at PDO is our streaming measurement, and that is across Spanish language and English language TV. We've seen some really impressive statistics so far for streaming Spanish language platforms like VIX. I just want to pull this up to make sure I get this correct. But auto brands overall were 29% more effective on Spanish language streaming platforms than English language. And then for wireless, a very active brand on both, Spanish language creative was 18% more impactful. So that story that we've seen for years on linear, we're seeing that continue into a streaming viewing platform as well.
Yeah, our VIX platform, which is streaming, is performing incredibly well. It's the only one that is 100% Spanish content. I don't know if, I think we're about to close. This is a 15-minute talk, but you had some incredible data about Diageo that I think you want to unveil here and then talk a little bit about the report.
Yes. So the report's coming out next week. One of the categories that we do focus on is alcohol. And Diageo really swept the board. Their ads for Bailey's, for Smirnoff, and for Crown Royal were among the top brands on Spanish language TV. And then on a creative level, there was the Bailey's ad, and also a Smirnoff ad with Trevor Noah in it. All of those did like 300% or more stronger than the Spanish language TV average. So cheers to Diageo. They're definitely getting in there and doing some things very right on Spanish language TV.
And I think that Trevor Noah is a great example of the fact that you can use an ad across platforms. And we are seeing more and more ads in English on Spanish language TV. While ads in English, 80% of our audience is bilingual. And while a Spanish ad in culture still performs better than anything else, placing an English ad, as long as the story is understandable, is still better than doing nothing. I want to leave you with the fact that it's way more important doing something, to engage with these consumers that are incremental to the brand than just sitting until you have the perfect, marketing campaign. You can do a sort of an evolution here.
I agree. We see success across the board. I do think when you really lean into culture, you see that top tier performance, but I don't think you have to do that to find success in Spanish language TV.
I think this is it, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.